Hey guys, Wags with Ironman 4x4. Thanks for jumping in the install video. We are gonna get the Raid BBR098 insert winch bumper installed for a 3rd gen Toyota Tundra. Okay, step 1 of a safety talk is be safe. Step 2 is use knife hands so people know that you're being serious when you're talking to them. You don't have to put your truck in the air if you don't want to. You can do this on the floor. But if you're in your garage and you are gonna jack the truck up, make sure truck's in park, chalk your tires, set your e-brake, use jack stands, and if you pull your tires and wheels off, throw them under the truck so if it does fall, it won't squish your pretty face. So if you are on a lift, before you put the truck up in the air, hop in, we gotta pop the hood. And another thing, whether you're on a lift or in your garage, if your truck has the Toyota front active aero dam, that's that little flap that kicks down underneath your truck when you start going 60 miles an hour for CAFE standards. If you have that, we need to deploy it down, and I'll show you how to do that right now. Now to get that front active air dam to fold down so that we can remove that unit, you need to start your truck or have it running, turn it off, and within 45 seconds, hold the windshield wiper stick, hold it in the up position for 2 seconds. That front air dam will push down and it'll stay in that position. You can turn the truck off. If you need to get it back up, you just turn the truck back on, put it in drive, it folds back up. It's a great trick also if you're looking to do oil changes or any other services. But for our purposes, we're gonna drop it down so we can get it removed. We're gonna start on the front driver's side corner. We've gotta get these 2 connectors unhooked. There's a plastic clip that will pop up and remove. Then we'll hit this 10 mil, that one, that one, that one, total of 4. And then we'll get these 2 connectors on this side and also a plastic clip. So it's same on both sides. I'll get this clip first. You just press on the back side of that tab. It'll lift the front up. You gotta push PDH pretty dang hard to get them to go. There you go. And if you can't, you can always get in here with a little pick or a screwdriver, and that tab right there, that's what you need to clip up and unhook. So we'll slide that back. This one, the tab's on the other side, we'll push in. That's your fiber optic camera line right there. We'll grab a clip removal tool or a flathead screwdriver. You can do it with a pick, pretty much anything, but you wanna get underneath that little top hat, wiggle it up, and once it pops up, you can grab it and slide it out. I'll do the same thing on the other side, then we'll attack these 10 mils. So we've got the top of our grill loose, but the bottom of the grill is held in place by these 2 brackets that go from the bottom of the grill up to the radiator support, and they're held on by 2 10 mils on each side. You go over here by your front passenger horn, drop straight down, here's the bracket, there's the 2 10 mils. On the driver's side, drop down, and it's that bolt and that bolt. We gotta pull those out. So whether you attack from the top or the bottom, doesn't matter. If you go from the top, you're gonna need a long wrench or an extended power ratchet with a 10 mil on it. To get the rest of our bumper off, we need to pull these fender flares out, and you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 10 mil bolts. We don't need to pull the whole thing off. We just wanna unclip it and have it hang away from the truck. Then we can get the rest of this bumper skin off. We'll do it on this side, then we'll run over to the passenger side, do the same thing. All right, with all those fasteners out, grab it from the inside, work your way like this, and we just wanna give it a nice pull straight out, and there's one more there. And once you get just a couple of these guys, you can grab here behind the body on this side of the bumper. There's a thick plastic support piece this all snaps into. So you wanna get behind that and then just pop those out like that. Same thing on the other side. We're getting close to freeing this thing up. We've got the truck in the air. Now we can attack the last 4 10 millimeter bolts that are holding the bottom side of our bumper on. So I'm gonna work under the truck here. So on the front driver's side, you've got this 10 millimeter bolt here, this one, that guy, and that one over here. Okay, I think we are good. I'm just gonna double check and make sure this side's clear, and you can kind of gently pull. There's a clip in here, so you need some positive force. I always like to pull from the middle just to unhook that. I'm gonna check this side too. It's always probably better to have a friend help you. I've done it a few times by myself, so we'll just see if we can get it to, okay, there's that side. There we go. And that comes right off like that. Now with the grill off, let me give you a quick overview of what we're gonna do here next steps. So, different levels of Tundra, different trim levels come with different toys on them. If you have the front active aero flip down aero dam, this is the motor, this is the splitter here that folds down. It is attached to this crash bar. Now all this removes the same way whether you have it or not. There's 8 17mm bolts that hold it together. You've got 2 up here, 2 down here, 2 and 2. Fastest, most efficient way to do that is grab a 17mm socket so you can get these outside bolts out quickly, but you're gonna need a 17mm wrench to get this inside one that fits under the shroud here and here. Before you start ripping bolts out though, we need to attack the wiring first. So there's a wire harness for this motor unit. Grab a clip removal tool, we'll pop this clip here, and we'll undo this connector on this side right here. It's on a plastic bracket, so just rock it easy. There we go. I'll start with this 17 here. Make sure to set these aside. We're gonna need a couple of them later. All right, that one's out. Now we can switch to our 17mm on the impact, start pulling this all apart. And this last one, this whole thing's gonna be coming off. But you can take it apart and it won't fall because it's braced kind of in there on its own. And then that just slides out like that. We'll set it aside. Okay guys, if your truck came equipped with the front active aero dam that folds down, we need to relocate this motor. If you don't, if you leave it unhooked and this plug is unhooked, the CAN bus on the truck freaks out. It'll give you a bunch of error codes and all that. So instead of coming up with a really expensive adapter to plug on, we came up with a much simpler solution that's way more affordable. So we're gonna take this motor off, we'll do a couple adjustments, we're gonna fit a bracket to it, and we're gonna relocate this motor up and out of the way. Now if your truck didn't come with this stuff, then don't worry about it. Just skip ahead. This stuff really doesn't apply to you. Now we can flip this back over and that motor unit comes right out just like that. We're done with this, so we can set it aside and we'll work on that motor unit. Now with the motor unit out, we've got to make a cut. We are gonna cut right across here. So grab whatever cutting tool you like to use. Cut-off disc on a grinder works well. Jigsaw, multi-tool, whatever you need. It just needs to cut, be able to cut through about 1 inch thick. We're gonna take off as much of this as we can. That way it's out of the way. All right, it doesn't have to be the cleanest thing in the world. No one's gonna see it but you. Anyways, this is a little rough, but effectively that's what we want. We want this guy out of here. Now, this can swing back and forth. It's not gonna interfere with anything. Okay, now we can get this bracket right here. This is the front aero dam motor relocate bracket. So I just put some arrows here with a Sharpie. That is up, this is the back, that's the front. So you're gonna need this bracket. I'm just actually gonna reuse my factory Toyota hardware that we removed. And those are the 10mm bolts that went right there. I'm gonna take the motor, I'm gonna flip it on its side, and then this bracket is gonna go just like this. So that's the back of the bracket, back of the motor unit. We'll go flat washer, 10mm nylock nut, flat washer, 10mm nylock nut. Cool. So grab yourself a 10mm wrench, and a socket, set to tighten, and we'll get this tightened down, but leave it loose. And while we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and put the top bracket on this motor unit. So you're looking for this little L bracket that's got the 90 brake right there. So grab that bracket, and what we'll do is this little L bracket is gonna go just like that. So we'll take our bolt, we'll drop it down the top, we'll get this flat washer underneath, the 10 mil nylock nut. There it goes. I'll take my number 4 and my number 10. Okay, and leave it loose. So this is what it looks like. Let me just kind of spin it so you have some perspective here. That's what we're dealing with. Basically, this whole thing's been flipped upside down. The plug for the connector is now up top and to the right if you're facing the truck. This is going to bolt right in here and up top there. So we've got to do a couple little modifications because we want to get all this stuff moved around. So we need to move this middle support. So there's a 10 mil bolt right here. So we'll start with removing that. So once that's out, set that aside. You don't want to lose it. The next bolt we'll undo is this guy up here on our hood latch assembly. Set that up there. Grab a clip removal tool, and we're going to pop this wire harness out. Nice and careful like. Then we're going to remove this cross water hose. This is what pumps water to your turbos, keeps them cool. Rock that out. Come over here, same thing. Be careful, but you can just gently get that kind of out of the way like that. So you're dealing with this. Take the clip removal tool. We're gonna pop that guy. And then this is the part where you wanna be careful. I'm gonna set that back over here. We are going to pull this water hose gently down. You want to just slowly stretch it and then get it right underneath that, just like that, and let it bounce back. We want to move that back behind there. Almost forgot, I need to drill one hole. So remember this little hose clip that secures the hose right there? We're going to relocate this into the top of the motor. So we got our hole drilled. I am gonna do one more little modification. This clip here has these little wings. So I'm gonna get in there with a pair of wire cutters. I'm gonna clip that extra material away. Take your little hose clip, pop it in from underneath, and that will help keep our hose stretched back and away from this housing. This is gonna fit right in behind there. I'm gonna move this hose up into that clip that we relocated. Now, we left this with a little bit of slack so we can kind of move it around. And then we'll take that OEM bolt and that just goes right back in. All right, so to get the bottom of this bracket put on, grab these two Ironman bolts. They're a number 10 mil head and a washer. Awesome. So I'm gonna tighten those bad boys down. Okay, now that I've got the motor unit loosely fitted here, I'm gonna grab my hand tools. I'm gonna make sure all my alignment's good. One area of focus, make sure that the motor unit clears that. And you've got a bunch of up and down adjustment. So now it's just getting it to fit just right and then lock it down. Clip this back in, go easy. Kind of open those jaws up on the clamp there. Rock the hose in. If you have to, if it's too close over here on this side, see we got an air gap there. But this bracket right here, it is fairly flexible. So if we need to, we can just bend that back just a tad. Now we can get our wire harness hooked back up. So we will take our connector and that is gonna go just like that. This, we can make the stretch and go right back down there on that cross support. Now, we provide you with these little shorty crush tubes, and if you want to put them back here behind this bracket, you can then put your motor mount on the back side of the bracket and the crush tube to space it further back into your grill. All right, let's get some real work done. We need to knock these studs out of the frame horns because they're gonna be in the way. So you've got one here and one here. Get yourself a sledge or a mallet and you can just smack these bad boys out. We'll pop those out and toss them. That one might be gone. I think that one might be back by the tailgate. All right, let's get some Ironman 4x4 Raid bumper bolted onto this thing. Step one, and you gotta do it. It's gotta be the first step. If you don't, you're gonna have to pull all this back off and go back and redo it. Don't ask me how I know. We have supplied you with 2 of these little nutserts. These guys, right there. What you wanna do is you're gonna grab, there's 2 of these long bolts that came in the kit. These guys right here. Take one of your larger nuts, because we're gonna make basically a nutsert tool. Now, if you have a nutsert tool at home or borrow one from a buddy, fine, use that. But you don't have to go out and rent a special tool to install nutserts. As long as you have the right threaded bolt that goes in the nutsert and a nut that's larger than the bolt, it'll work. So I'm gonna take the large nut, put it on like that. I'm gonna spin the nutsert down, and you've basically made yourself an install tool for that. So that is gonna go right in here. There's a hole right there on the driver's side and the passenger side. We've got to drill both of those out because they are not large enough. So I'm gonna take a step bit, I'm gonna drill it out. Another couple things to be cautious about. You wanna make sure that your hole isn't larger than the outer diameter of this nutsert. So even if you feel like you can kind of get it's a little tight, try hammering it in. You want these little serrations to bite into the sidewall. That's what holds it steady when you're trying to pull this back and mushroom everything out, because that's all these are. They're like a wall anchor for, you know, steel. If you overbore this hole and it's too big, this will just spin. So then what you can do is you can put it in a set of vice grips or put it in a vise, and you can kind of pre-start it on a bench just to get it to mushroom, then hammer it in. But I'm just trying to give you a couple heads ups so that you know, you don't struggle with it. So let's get to drilling. There we go, next step. I'm gonna grab an 18 mil wrench for the floating nut, and I'm gonna grab a 16 for the bolt head. And I'm just gonna start tightening this thing down. And again, the goal is you don't want that sleeve to spin in the housing. You want it to bite down. All right, now all we gotta do, reverse the process, and then just make sure that that's not spinning. Yep, see that brass nutsert, that thing is locked in. Now you might ask yourself, yeah, but what if I didn't get the nutsert to mushroom out enough? Don't worry, if it's held in place when we go to put this bolt back in with our recovery point and our brackets, we're gonna hog down on it anyways. It'll set itself. So you might be tempted to just grab the whole winch tray and get the thing hung up here and bolted on. Do not do that. If you do not put these nut plates in first, you'll have to undo all your work and go back. So what we're gonna do is this nut plate goes all the way in here. There's 2 holes. There's a little one right here in front. There's a large one in the back. We're going for the larger one in the back. We're gonna set that there. Then we're gonna grab an M12 bolt with a split washer and a flat washer. It's 35 mil long. Grab that, then grab this bracket right here. So I'll spin it around, show you what it looks like. You're gonna have a left and a right. This is marked with an L for left. So we're on the driver's side, front left. We're then gonna put this bracket right in here like that. That's how you line it up. If you want, you can take another bolt and you can just stick it in here so it doesn't fall away. I have another one of those set up. And then right under here, we're gonna run that bolt up, catch that nut plate, tighten it down, then we can clip off the popsicle stick. I clip it a little bit long, bend it, tuck it in just in case I ever want to undo it. I can get everything back out. All right, easiest way to do it, I'm gonna put the bracket up here. I'm going to run a bolt right through here and put a nut on the back. This is gonna come back off, but it'll hold the bracket in place so it doesn't drop since I'm doing it by myself. If you're having a hard time getting this bolt to land on that nut plate because it is kind of a pain to do it with one hand. There's another little trick. You can take a socket. I'm gonna use a shorty 18 here, and I'm gonna drop an 18 nut into the socket as a spacer. It'll sit down in there like that. That way when I put the bolt in, it keeps the bolt at the top and won't drop down into the socket. There we go. Now I'm just gonna bend this little sparkler stick, and I'm gonna go something like this. I'm gonna bend it down, then I'll push it up, and then I'll cut it off. And then push it back in there like that. Cool. Now, if I ever have to pull this apart, I can reach up in there, pull it back down, and get it out. With that done, I'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, next we wanna grab these bolts. You have 4 of these long ones. There's 2 others that are similar, but even longer. You want these are 100 millimeters long. Again, if you measure from the base of the bolt head out to the end of the thread, that's 100 millimeters. So grab 2 of these, split washer, flat washer, grab 2 of these crush tube sleeves. We're gonna set them right here. We'll run 1 bolt like that. We'll run the second bolt behind it just like that. Then we'll grab this plate right here. It's stamped with an L for left. That fits right up here on the inside, and it's got threaded nut or welded nuts on the plate. So we'll just catch a couple threads. All right, let's get our recovery point put on. So grab these 120 mil long bolts right here. It's an 18 millimeter head. I've got a split washer and a flat washer on it. I've also got another one of those crush tubes. So I'm gonna go through the front top hole in the recovery point. I'm gonna line up with this front top hole right here on the bracket. The trick is, with your left hand, get that crush sleeve, line it up, get that bolt to slide through, and then we're trying to make sure that bolt hits that welded nut right there. So you get 2 of these bolts, one for here and one for the other side. I've got a split washer and a flat washer on it. It's a 16 millimeter head. That's gonna go right there into our nutsert. Again, the trick when you're installing any kind of heavy armor or protection for your rig, don't lock things down. Leave it loose, then we can make sure it's centered on the truck and get everything locked down. All right, now grab one of these guys. It's a 35 millimeter long bolt with an 18 millimeter head on it. We'll put a split washer and a flat washer on it. This is just gonna go right there. There's a welded nut on the inside of the bracket back here. I'm gonna jump to the other side, do the same thing, and then we can get our winch tray fitted on. We will go just like this, up and over. Now it's gotta fit between those 2 inner brackets. But I'm gonna have a couple of these bumper bolts that came off of our OEM bumper. Those are gonna go right down here. So I'll just run one there. That'll hold that side on. And I'll do the same thing over here. There we go. Now we just need an OEM bolt for here, one for the outside, and then we can get our Ironman hardware and start getting this all locked down. Now for these OEM bumper bolts that go on the inside here, they're 17s, you're gonna need a wrench. Because of the angle of the frame horn, you're not gonna be able to get a socket on that. So I'm gonna grab a 17 mil wrench. Again, just another reminder, leave everything loose because all this has to line up. It can get really cattywampus easy. Just throwing a nut on the back just to keep them in so they don't pop out. And don't forget these 2 down here for the recovery points. These are 35 mil long, 18 heads, split washer, flat washer. All right, so I've got all of my bolts fitted up. I threw nuts on the back just to keep everything in place while I kind of moved the winch tray around just to get it kind of fitted in. So everything is where it should be. Now I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna pull the nuts off the back of the bolts and put my flat washer and split washer on the back now that I've got room to do that. So on the top here, you're gonna have bolt, flat washer. On the back side, you got flat washer, split washer, nut. Let me run you through the hardware setup for this. Down here, you're gonna have OEM Toyota bolt down low, right? makes sense. No washers needed because they're flange bolts. Up here, you're gonna use the Ironman hardware. 1, 2, and 3. 3 here, 3 on the other side. That's a 35 millimeter long bolt with an 18 millimeter socket head. You're gonna run it like this. Bolt, big flat washer, go through the front, small flat washer, split washer, and nut. That's your setup for these 3 positions here and over there. All right, we got 4 of these bolt setups left. We're gonna go right here, underneath, right here, and underneath. Actually, we give you 2 longer ones, just in case. So I'm gonna use the long ones underneath because they don't really, run into anything. All right, now we're gonna grab these L-brackets. They're gonna fit right here, and this is what's gonna help tie in our OEM plastic of our bumper so that things aren't, shaking all over the place. So we're gonna grab 4 of these M10 bolts, flat washers, split washers, nuts. So run it like this. We'll go through the front, put a flat washer on the back side, split washer, followed up by an M10 nut. I'll just spin it down and leave it a little loose. Do the same thing on the other side. And so I don't forget, I'm gonna take the same hardware setup and I'm gonna put it right there like that. I'll just spin it there. I'll hang the same thing over on the other side. One thing you might need to do when you're installing a winch on this, depending on the trim level of your Tundra, is you might have to trim away this little splash plate. Now, a lot of guys are gonna run underbody protection, skid plates, so that's coming off anyways. I've seen them in 3 different setups: plastic, fiberglass, and actually felt. So not a big deal. We're gonna trim these little tabs out of here. We don't want anything rubbing up against that synthetic winch rope line because that would be really bad. So we'll make the cut, get the winch mounted in there. Couple tips, we provide ours with a smaller solenoid control box. I like to mount mine up here, it just makes the most sense, but you can really mount them wherever you want on your truck that fits you. So we sell all kinds of brackets and accessory universal brackets too. So it's kind of dealer's choice on that. I like it here because if I have to jump out and use my winch quickly, I can pop the cap, I can put my wireless dongle on, and then I can run my winch where it's safest inside the vehicle with the hood up. All right guys, I got the grill up on the table. I like working on a table and you're not breaking your back on the floor. So we've got a nice little tablecloth down so we're not gonna scratch any of our body work. Couple things we need to do. 1, we have to remove this louver system. This is also an actively controlled aero system. When you start your truck in the morning, these louvers close flat. So when you're driving your truck around, your radiator heats up quick, get your heater going, you get heat in the truck. Once you're up to running temp, these bad boys are gonna open up flat, cool your truck back down. So this whole assembly needs to come out. It's held in by 6 of these 10 mil bolts, 1, 2, 3 on the top, 4, 5, 6 on the bottom. These guys that we unbolted earlier, these just unclip. So I can take these out right now. We can set these aside. We don't need them. I'm just gonna push these little tabs up. There's 3 of them. That comes out. Before we take this out, let's always make sure and remember, electronics always come first. So I'm gonna unhook this, just press this tab out on the edge, give it a little wiggle. There we go, pops out like that. And now we can take these out. 3 on the top. And remember, don't throw these away. You're gonna need them to get this back in. All right, that just lifts up and out. We'll set it aside. I'm gonna put the bolts right back in where they go so I don't lose them. Now this section right in here, kind of basically from the fog lights down out to here, that's what's gonna get cut away, but we need all the electronics from it. So we have 2 interior parking sensors. We're gonna unhook those, pop them out. We're gonna unhook all the mounting clips, get our fog lights unhooked. Fog lights need to come out. And then we're gonna start separating the grill so we can make our cut. Let me show you how to do the parking sensors so you don't break them. So all you have to do is see that purple tab on the top and this purple tab on the bottom. You can do it with your fingernail or a little tool, but the way I do it is pull back gently and then rock it up, just give it a twist, hold it in place, come over to the other one, push it up, and then rock back and forth. Just like that. Cool. Let's get these fog lights unclipped. Push that bottom tab, wiggle, pop right out. Same thing on the other side. Give it a wiggle, comes out real easy. And now I'm just gonna start working all of these clips on the harness out. So again, slide down and under. We don't wanna break them. And some guys wanna just hit down to pop it out. I like to rock, twist back and forth so we don't damage these, because we do wanna reuse them. Here, this is our temp sensor. Pop that out. That's gonna get relocated. Unhook the front radar. Okay, let's get this little front piece here. Let me show you. I'll rock this up. The Ironman bumper is gonna fit right in here like that. So we need to start with getting this piece out. This should all unclip. Now I like to use these little plastic body panel tools because you can use them as shims and you can keep positive pressure as you work your way down. If you don't, as you get one undone and work your way down, the other ones will clip right back in. So you don't wanna lose your progress. So I like to start from the center, and then you can kind of see, you get a little more flex. I can keep kind of bracing everything as I work my way down. But see how, those clips, those little tabs will pop back up and hook up. So give a little pressure, peel them back. This guy right here, snuck back into place. And as we work our way out towards the edge, you can see that this piece is kind of tucked up behind the side of the wing, but as you pull and flex, it'll start to come apart. Same thing on the other side. Another trick you can do is take some microfiber towels. I'm gonna tuck them in between here. So as I'm prying this apart, I don't accidentally scratch anything up. Stuff another rag in there, just keep it from snapping back. I flipped it over, you can see we're getting some good separation here. You can kind of see what we got going. We need to get this top surround that our fog lights are sitting in. This piece has to unclip too. There we go. Awesome. Now I'm gonna flip it back over and attack the clips. So these clips up here are what are holding us up. Okay, there we go. Got it. Sweet. All right, grab your tool of choice. You can use a jigsaw. You can use a cutoff wheel. You might have some trouble getting in here because it's like real fine and precision type work. So I'm gonna use my multi-tool because it can do a multi-tooled of different jobs. All right, so let me show you my moves. I'm gonna start down here. I'm gonna cut right on that inner crease, come all the way up, make a nice little bend right under this fog light. I'm gonna be careful not to cut it. I'm gonna make a happy little turn at a 45 degree all the way back here. I'm gonna get real close and comfortable, all the way over here. I'm gonna come around under this radar unit. Now it might detect me, but I'm gonna fly real low and get under that radar, undetected like. I'm gonna continue over and make my same moves. This is my exfil route right here, back under this fog light over here, nice and tight, all the way back down and out. Look at that, happy little bumper cut. I'm gonna set it on full auto. All right, we're getting closer. I'm just clearing away all the big stuff so that I can get ready to make the finer cut. Give me a little more room to move around. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can always come back through and clean this up with a little sand disc or a little file. So you just want to get the cut close. Cut's coming along really well. Just like a haircut, go slow. You don't want to take too much away. I like to leave as much of the plastic support pieces in here as I can just for rigidity. But one area that I am gonna cut a little more away from is I'm gonna cut out this section here, this section here, because we have a real close fit for that fog light to hit that bumper shell. And then I'm also gonna cut out down here to this first mounting tab and then back up to clear that out because we have a support on that bumper shell that tucks down in there. Two ways of doing this. You can pull these fog lights out if you've got a Phillips screwdriver. It's just a couple screws, pop them out. Or like I've got my multi-tool and I can be pretty careful with it. I also can kind of pull it away to make my cuts too, so I don't want to hit that fog light. If you want to pull it out, fine. If you can do it, save yourself a little bit of time, your call. All right, that cut looks great. Do the same thing on the other side. It's gonna fit great. One thing though is, I guess it's kind of dealer's choice. My initial cut, I cut on that inside 90, and that's fine. The bumper will still clear, but I think for my personal preference, I'm gonna cut right behind this silver wing right there. That way when you look in, you don't see that plastic in there, so your call. But that's how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna cut that back. So we set aside this lower grill support piece. I told you to hang on to these. We need to put it back on. So I'm gonna put it on the truck now. That way when we put our OEM grill back on, it'll just snap right back into place. So it's those 4 10 bolts. I flip the grill back up on our table. Now, when you're flipping that grill back and forth, making your cut, these little metal inserts seem to want to pop out, and you really need them, or you're not going to be able to get that radiator louver system back in. So they just slide in like that. So make sure all of those bad boys are right back where they go. Got that one there. That's all 6. Also, like I said before, I left all those 10 mils in there so I wouldn't lose them, which is nice because then when you set them back on, everything's ready to go. Do not tighten this down with the power tool. As you can see, this is a plastic housing and it just has a little pressed in metal bushing. It's like a crush sleeve, but I'm telling you, you can over tighten it, you will still crush that soft aluminum bushing and break the plastics. And don't forget to plug your connector back in. That positive snap means you did it right. All right, let's talk about these parking sensor wire extension harnesses. These things are great because as we start to button our wire harness back up, like we have to hook our fog light back up here, we'll clip that in. I'm gonna get these clips kind of back in here. We're gonna take some zip ties. We'll work on our cable management because we don't want stuff flapping around. So we'll get all that zip tied up. You'll find here that as we do that, we're gonna be just a little short getting this inside parking sensor to mount in. So we'll press real hard on that tab. There we go. We will take the long connector side here with the barb on top. Nice positive click there. Take this and that just goes right back on like that. Cool. So now we've got plenty of extra wire harness to get that parking sensor comfortably in there and to get all of our cables out of the way for when we go to reinstall this on the winch tray. And before we get too carried away, let's not forget we need to rehook up our front adaptive radar cruise control plug. So I'm gonna plug that back in. I'm gonna get some of these clips pressed in place. We've included a bunch of these little zip ties. You're welcome to use those. I've got my own. They're a little bit thicker. So I'm gonna rock these bad boys here. So because we're using the factory wire harness, but we've had to cut a lot of that plastic on the stock grill away, you're gonna need to use your zip ties to kind of bundle up these cables and get them resecured. So tricks for that with these wires. Just you don't want to crimp anything down too tight, so try to get big loops, use zip ties. You don't want to rank down on anything too hard. A great location for running these zip ties is some of the little clips that we had to remove for that lower piece. You can now slide those zip ties right through. We've also got these little clips here for cable management, so if you don't want to use zip ties, you can always run a bolt through these and run all your cables through there. If your truck does not have front parking sensors, this front bumper already comes installed with these little plastic plug caps. So leave them in, it's fine, they'll stay in there, good to go. If your truck does have front parking sensors, you just want to pop these things out, put your thumb on them, they just kick right out like that. There we go. Cool. Now we've got to get these little provided housings just like that, and you want to run them up and down, north, south. But to get them in there, we are going to open this adhesion promoter. Inside is a sponge that's like soaked up with all that material. It friggin' reeks, do not huff this. We're gonna pull it out. We're gonna quickly wipe around the surface area here. We wanna clean all that up. It's gonna leave like a blue residue, but that's fine. Please, you gotta use this stuff. If you try to put these 3M double-sided tapes on here, they won't last as long. This stuff will like cement these bad boys on for life. Here we go. So we open it up and take a big deep breath. No, I'm kidding. Oh, dude, stuff freaking reeks. Try not to drop it there like I did. I'm gonna wipe that sponge all around like that. Now we will let that set up and dry, and I'm gonna go throw this away. That is setting up, it's a little tacky. I mean, you don't want it to go totally dry. And then on these, we're just gonna peel these double-sided stickies. And that is actually gonna go right onto the back of the parking sensor housing. All right, let's get the red backer peeled up. Cool, just like that. And we are gonna run this north-south, just like that. And it's important to put it in with that up and down orientation, because this parking sensor needs to go in like this. If you put it in like this, it's gonna throw the truck off. It's not gonna know what the heck's going on. There we go. Now all we gotta do is take our parking sensor and we will drop it right down between those two tabs. And again, nice, easy pressure, because you definitely don't wanna snap those tabs off. Same thing on the other side. All right, that's all hooked up, but don't forget, this is just a mock-up. We still have to get all this on the truck. So let's unhook the parking sensor wire harness at the sensor, get in there with a really fine pick and pop that front little tab up. Then when the shell's installed and we get the grill on, we can just plug it in. Good to go. Okay, now let's get our fairlead and our flip-up license plate bracket installed on the front of this shell. If you're not doing a winch, then you're not gonna have this. And you can just run this and run your license plate so you can keep it down. I like to run this bracket even with a winch because I use my license plate as a wind and weather deflector to keep the crap, bugs, dirt, and honestly sun. Synthetic winch lines, they're really susceptible to UV and they'll bleach out. So I actually like keeping my license plate flipped down. And when I need it, flip it up, everything's there, ready to rock. So you're gonna need a number 8 Allen key, and you're gonna need a number 19 millimeter socket. All right, let's get this flip up license plate bracket on first. Get these big dogs in there. So we are gonna go flat washer, split washer, and 19 millimeter nut. Same thing over here. I'm gonna take this number 8 Allen and I'm just gonna hold that in place so it don't go nowhere. Take my 19 and hammer down. All right, I'll flip it back around so you can see. Oh, the thing's heavy. Awesome. We can put our super cool license plate on there when we're all done. All right, now's a great time to get this light bar installed in this Raid bumper because things are gonna be tight when we get it on the truck. So I like to do it here on the bench. Now the light bar that we include, this bar was made specifically for this bright lightsaber bar. A couple reasons why. It's part number ILBSR003BW, so make sure you got the right light bar for it. We'll put the box aside. Another trick, before we get too far down the road on this, there's a little Ironman 4x4 logo right here. Make sure that's oriented correctly because these light bars use directional reflectors. So it gives you a nice sharp top line, and then it's black up above and super bright down low. You wanna make sure this is oriented right side up. Now that we know which way it goes, we're gonna install our L-brackets that go on the side. And to do that, you're gonna grab this number 5 cap head hex. We're gonna grab the correct bracket. You want these brackets so they're kind of swept to the back, and then we'll go ahead and thread those in like that. There we go. Awesome. We can flip this around, set it right there in the opening on these welded tabs where it goes. Now I pulled my parking sensors out of the brackets just to give myself some extra room to get these tightened down. Got the light bar in place on these welded tabs. I'm gonna take this 13mm bolt, drop it right down the top. This mount has raised shoulders to hold the bolt in place so you can just tighten it down with a wrench from the bottom. I'm gonna grab a washer out of the hardware kit that came with the front bumper. I'm gonna throw that on there and get that 13mm nylock nut on. I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll get them locked down. Now the front of the plate of this bumper shell is flat, so if you bolt your light bar flush up against the back, the alignment should be good. It's gonna come down to how you actually set the bumper shell up. You've got a lot of adjustment here on these slotted holes, so just keep that into consideration when you're putting it on your truck, that you don't mount the bar, the front shell up, pointing up. You wanna make sure, think about where your light bar is gonna go. I'm gonna grab this number 5 Allen wrench and get it locked down. Light bar's in. I'm gonna get the parking sensors clipped back in place. So this parking sensor has this little silicone ring that goes around it. It's real nice and soft. So you wanna make sure that when you put this in the parking sensor mount, that it mounts flush. It might take a couple tries, but I've seen that little silicone piece get pinched. So when you go through, I like to take the bumper and hold it like this and see how that went in nice and even like that. That looks flush, looks good, nice and tight. So before we get that shell put on our winch tray, if you're running a winch, put your winch into free spool, disengage your clutch, and go ahead and pull out, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet. We need to fit this through the front of our fairlead and then get it on. We're almost ready to get the bumper shell on. Let's just do a couple little things that'll make our lives easier if we're going solo and we can't find a friend or an enemy to help us. So grab these brackets here, run a couple pieces of tape, and then on this side, we're gonna match that profile with these 3 bolt holes here. We're gonna go on the outside of it. You're gonna wanna line it up and then get that tape locked down. That way, we don't have to try to hold these things in place. I'll do the same thing over here on this side, because when we lift this shell up, these flanges need to go on the outside of the mounts. So this flange will go out here, that one will go out here. We'll have a couple bolts in our pockets like that. It's pretty much the last set of hardware that you have. Split washer, flat washer, 18mm head. So have a impact gun with an 18mm socket loaded and ready to go. I'll fit this up, I'll hold it in the center so I can balance it. I'll get a couple threads on this side, run that in a couple threads, and then it'll hang on its own. That'll buy us a bunch of time that we can get it all stitched together. All right, let's get this front grille back on. Make sure your fender flares are pulled out. If you have a friend, that always helps too. And I'm gonna start kind of at the top. Snap, wire harnesses are all out of the way. Get my plastics clipped back in. With the grill on and the truck a little bit lower, I'm gonna get all the top buttoned up now. So remember these little clips over here on the edge? I'm gonna get my connectors hooked up. There's one right there. Here's our front camera. That we're gonna tighten 4 10mm bolts, 2 3, 4, and then the same thing over here on this side. Again, I don't like to use power tools when I'm tightening it down because this is plastic. There we go. All right, get our connectors over here. 1, 2, and that clip pushed in. Top's done. Let's get our fender flares tucked back into place. So these are gonna cap over the felt inner fender liner. So we'll just kind of work them back like that. I just wanna make sure we're good there. And then we've got a couple clips. And we wanna start back here and just gently push them in and then make sure they lock into place. Just be careful because these tabs here, here, and here are like blade clips. You don't wanna hurt them. Now we've got 5 10mm bolts, or they're basically screws. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's get those tightened up. Hand tight, don't use power tools because this is going into plastic, and if you barely over tighten it, it just strips it out. So I'm talking like maybe a pound of torque. All right, that looks great. I'm gonna go do the same thing over on the passenger side. All right, let's not forget these wing brackets that we loosely installed earlier, these little L-brackets that fit right here. So we're gonna take our hardware, it's a 16mm bolt with a flat washer. We'll drop it down. We'll go flat washer up, split washer up, and nut. So there we go, like that. We can get our plastics right where we want it. I may leave that a little loose until I get the bumper shell on the front, just in case I wanna move this in or out, because you can move it forward, backwards, in and out. I'll do the same thing on the other side, and I think when we're done, we'll come back and then lock it down in place. All right, little awkward hook over there. Hey, there we go. Make sure it goes up over my lights nice. And then carefully, you might have to move your plastics around just a little bit. So I'm just gonna lock these 18s down. I like to go slow. Now that I've got the bar fitted, you don't wanna just hog down on one side, it can throw the other side off. So we'll just watch it. There we go. That side's looking good. That's still even. Also, don't forget, we need to hook up our parking sensor wires. So I've got those clipped in. You do the same. Another great feature that Ironman gives you are these pinning bolts. And the way this works is on this outer bracket, there's 2 pre-drilled holes. What you can do is take a drill bit that's the same size as those holes, which is a little bit smaller than this, because this is actually a self-tapping bolt. Drill through the inner plate using the outer plate with the hole cut in it as a guide, and then you can screw these things in through. What that does is it pins your bumper shell in place. It locks it in place with your winch tray so it will never move. Or if you need to pull things apart, you can undo the pinning bolts, take it apart, and when you go to fit it back on, it'll lock it exactly into the same place. All right, now that everything is where I want it, I'm gonna lock down that little L bracket that ties the plastic wing in place. So grab a 16 wrench and a 16 socket and get that tightened up. Awesome, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. Guys, we are done. This Raid insert winch bumper looks amazing on our 3rd gen Tundra. It's such a cool design. It's sleek, it's stealthy, super low pro. You don't lose any approach angle on this. And it's an insert winch bumper that has all the features of a full-size winch bumper. If you don't have one of these, you need to get one. Go to Ironman4x4America.com and we'll hook you up over there.